Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan. Now an exciting chapter for Singapore Netball awaits with two relatively fresh faces leading the charge. Daniel Ho, who was appointed the Chief Executive of Netball Singapore in December 2024, and Tara Steele, the newly appointed head coach of the national team, the Singapore Vandas. Both bring fresh perspectives, Daniel transitioning from media into sports leadership, and Tara bringing her international coaching expertise to shape the future of Singapore netball. So what drives them? What's their vision for the sport? And how will they take Netball Singapore to new heights? Let's find out. Daniel, Tara, welcome to Sports Minutes. How are you doing?
Thank you, Raushan. Doing well. Fan of the show.
Thank you, and doing well also.
Good to have both of you with us. Daniel, we'll start with you. Little over 3 months since you took over at Netball Singapore. I understand you made the transition from media to sports leadership, which seems like a left field move almost. Talk me through it. What was the thinking process behind it, and was there any hesitation?
Oh, lots of hesitation. Came out of the blue, really. So when the opportunity first landed on my plate, just for me to consider, my first reaction was, oh my goodness, what does a media guy know about sport? Yes, I've been a field hockey player almost all my life. I love the sport thoroughly. I still play with my club on the weekends. But it's very different from sport management or managing an NSA in Singapore. So first thought was, whoa, sports, right? Second is netball. Prior to September or August or September of last year, I had almost zero contact with netball. I knew nothing about the rules of the game. I knew nothing about how the community here was run. And so that was also a barrier for me. I thought, what would someone who doesn't know the sport have to contribute to the sport?
And so what was the moment that made you realize, yep, I'm going to take on this challenge?
Yeah, I suppose it was a collection of different moments, but I would say the major one was when I was invited to watch the Nations Cup, which Netball Singapore hosts in Singapore, where we bring international teams over to compete together with our Singapore team. And it was at that tournament that I really sensed a certain collective spirit in the community. There's sports and there's sports. But for netball, I think there was something quite special I felt that day, just watching the interaction between the players, the fans, the organisers, how everything came together. The fact that our players are role models for young girls all over the island who come to watch them and stay behind for 45 minutes to an hour after the game, getting autographs, taking photos, just talking to them and wondering, how it's like being a national athlete. Those moments were really quite special for me that week when I went to watch the games. But along the way as well, it was a process of discovery, speaking with various people associated with netball and with Netball Singapore. And I think they all had very good things to say. Of course, there are some challenges. There are things that we can do better. But I think all of them were really quite positive about the sport and what we can do for those associated with it.
No, I love how genuine and honest you are as chief executive to put your hand up and say, I didn't know enough, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to push it in the right direction. Speaks volumes of your leadership style, which we'll get stuck into. Speaking of leaders, we have the new head coach of the Singapore Vandas with us. Tara, firstly, huge congratulations on your appointment. What was it about Singapore that drew you here, and why are you so excited to take on this challenge?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really exciting opportunity for me, and I think came at a really great time for me in terms of my coaching journey too. I've been a coach in the Australian system for over 15 years and have coached at various levels in the pathway. And the role here is the national coach role, but it's also a technical director role. So certainly appealed to my strengths and my areas of experience with regard to not just developing athletes, I guess, in a high-performing environment, but those underpinning pathways and the technical development of our coaches and the system to create the next generation of athletes that can represent Singapore as well. So for me, those opportunities from a national opportunity don't always come combined together. And, doing my research around the program and looking at the success that has been created, in particular the last 12 months for Singapore and for the Vandas and what they're about, I guess, as a program, I think the opportunity came at a really great time where I think I can add strength and add my expertise to the program, but I think I'll get a lot out of it personally as well.
I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to find out more about what is your identity as a coach, right? But first, to put you in a bit of an awkward situation, I'm going to go to Daniel and ask him, what made Tara the outstanding candidate for this role?
Right, so I've interacted with Tara for about 2 weeks now since she arrived in Singapore. It's been really illuminating. As someone new to the sport, I can already see how professional she is. The attention to detail, the way she observes and is thoughtful about how she comes to certain decisions and conclusions, and how she involves people in that as well. Of course, the professional background is there for all to see. I think the relevance of her work, not just on the technical side, but also in some of her previous roles as a sports administrator in touch football in Australia. I think having that balance and having that comprehensive understanding of the landscape and how different stakeholders work together is really important in having a holistic view of how to approach certain matters and even the people in the sport.
No pressure, Tara, in terms of following through with that. I've had the benefit of looking at your illustrious portfolio, but for the benefit of the listeners, can you talk them through your experiences and why you felt this was the right time to take on that national challenge like you mentioned?
Yeah, so I'm a coach that's come through the Australian system and based out of Canberra in the ACT, and there I've been the head coach of a local association that's played in our state league competition for the last 12 years. So Canberra Netball, they're one of the larger associations and have established, I guess, a long-term success, but also that athlete development and producing athletes that have then gone on to represent the ACT at nationals, but then even more recently have had an athlete Nalani Mukunde, who's represented Zimbabwe at the World Championships. So athlete development, I guess, first and foremost is probably what I'm about as a person, and developing the athlete beyond what is just them as a netballer and the whole person. So through the ACT, have coached at nationals for 17s, 19s, 21s and have been involved in the pathway with the Canberra Giants in the Australian National League that feeds into Super Netball, the professional competition in Australia. So for me, I was probably at a crossroads in my netball coaching career. As a high-performance coach, I guess you're always looking at ways to continue to grow and adapt and challenge yourself, not just repeat the things that you've been doing that's been successful, and was looking beyond, I guess, the roles I'd had in Canberra and the ACT and looking at relocating, whether it was interstate or elsewhere, to chase netball opportunities that would challenge me, but also I guess be a positive experience too. So internationally then the timing for the Singapore role I guess came at a good one in terms of opportunity. There were a few other international roles that were advertised around a similar time, and did some research through some different people that I guess Australia has had some previous coaches involved in the Singapore pathway, as has New Zealand. So yeah, scoping out all the different options, I think the role for Singapore seemed like the right fit for me, and I guess what I can get out of it, but more importantly, what I can give to it.
Absolutely. It's about timing and the stars aligning, and it seems to have come together quite nicely. We'll continue the conversation about the national team in a short while, but Daniel, coming to you, in your role, you're not just in charge of the national team, the Singapore Vandas, you're in charge of the entire ecosystem. Again, I'll throw that term, no pressure to you, but I want to find out what your vision is for Singapore Netball. You've had some time to get your feet under the table. You must have set out your vision now.
Yeah, it's been about 10 weeks. So still early days. But yes, it's been a really interesting past 10 weeks, just understanding the various pieces in the ecosystem. I'm not one for grand visions, but I think it starts with getting the fundamentals right. But more importantly also, it's at the end of the day, everybody who is associated with netball in various ways. It could be as a player, right, in school. It could be as a parent supporting your daughter, your kid. It could be an umpire or coach or a team manager. It could be a sponsor or a partner. Everyone has a different role to play in the ecosystem, and it's about us rediscovering that relationship, re-establishing it, seeing how we can be more relevant to the different people, because sport is a platform. Just as media was a platform, sport is a platform too, a platform to do things that are bigger than sport. So I like what Tara mentioned about holistic development of the athlete. It's not just them as a sports person, but as people who will go on to do greater things, whether in sport or otherwise.
No, I absolutely agree with you in that sense, where sports give you so much more than trophies and more than points and stuff like that. Tara, coming to you, he talked about only it being 10 weeks and it being a very busy 10 weeks. I assure you 2025 is going to be super busy for you because the schedule is packed. UAE Nations Cup, SEA Games, World Youth Cup, to name a few. But what's the biggest challenge of adapting to such a hectic schedule?
Yeah, I think for me, 2 weeks into the role now, we're going through squad selection process for, I guess, those tournaments upcoming. I think the biggest challenge for the year is multiple events and ensuring that we can produce performance multiple times. So the team did have success last year towards the end of the year in particular. So how do we generate and cultivate that forward to ensure that we can reproduce that, but also where can we learn, particularly for something like SEA Games as a really key one at the end of the year, and one where success has maybe eluded the team previously. Where can we learn from what has happened in the past recent past in regard to the winning, but also where we've fallen down. And for me as a coach, getting across that really quickly. But where can I add my strengths and ensure that we've got the right athletes with the right high performance mindset, but the right game plan to then execute to get that performance and success on the court. So certainly up for the challenge, but it will be a big year to start with, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. And you touched on the SEA Games there. I guess that is the big target for the Singapore Vandas, especially after the success they had towards the back end of 2024. How much of your job is building on the good foundation there, but also going in to add that Tara Steele mentality or identity to the team?
Yeah, certainly. I think I'm a big believer about programs are bigger than one individual. So whilst I'll add my style, and obviously as a coach and a leader, I need to lead by example and bring my strengths to the role to get the best out of myself and the team. I really want to learn from the foundations that have been set from the team and the athletes that have had longevity within the program as well to ensure that we're all working on the same page to move forward. So the initial period for me is about learning as quickly as I can what are those key fundamental core things that make the Vandas who they are. What does our footprint and our DNA look like? And then how do we adjust and refine that to ensure that it's successful and that it works for us and that it contributes to our on-court performance. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a big challenge to take on, but you're clearly up for it. I just picked up on those two words you've mentioned a couple of times, and that's high performance. You are a high performance coach, right? And to me, that goes beyond tactics, goes beyond strength and conditioning. It goes to mindset. It goes to the person you are. How do you build a winning mindset?
Yeah, I think for me, high performance is just that. It's a mindset, it's beliefs, it's attitude, and most importantly, it's behaviours and action. And I think, again, how that looks on court for our athletes, they're training hard. They're in a training environment that's full time, but they're juggling careers. They're studying. They've got other things that they're doing with their time. They're a human outside of being a netballer. So ensuring that we can prepare them physically and mentally for what they need to do, but how that translates into on-court performance as a team. Netball's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. So having all players understand their role, contribute to their role, having a game plan that brings out their strengths. But ultimately, you've got to have happy individuals and happy athletes that are enjoying and working towards those goals, or else you're not going to produce that performance. So that's a key part of my role. But I guess, getting that out of myself as well in terms of what are my strengths, where can I motivate and inspire our athletes to want to be the best they can be.
I mean, based on everything you've said, I know 2025 is going to be packed, but it's going to be exciting if half the things you said come true. So I can't wait for that. Daniel, coming to you, you've got a background in media, and I'm certain you'll agree, content creation is so important around sport. I do that as a full-time role. You used to do that. Now you're trying to marry sport leadership as well as content management. How do you think those two can find a happy place just to get more eyeballs on Netball Singapore?
Yeah, I view content creation as a means of expression and a transfer of energy, and that's so important in sport. Going back to the moment when I thought, this is an opportunity worth at least considering. It was that transfer of energy from the players on court to the fans, to me as a spectator. Similarly, content creation is a platform for that. And also for players and people associated with the community to express themselves in different ways, something that they can be proud of, that they can share with the world. Whether it's a moment of struggle or a moment of joy and love. I think all that is really important. So that's content creation for me, whether it is in netball and other fields. Of course, I think eyeballs is the most obvious outcome of that if you do it well. But at the same time, it's the quality of that engagement. So yes, it's nice to see the follower count going up, but it's about what do you get as an audience member at the end of the day. Do you feel something? Are you forced to think about something a bit more deeply? That matters a lot more.
There's such a fine line between chasing views and giving the audience something tangible to hold on to. And I like that message you're trying to drum home. And the reason I talk about amplification is because that's going to have a knock-on effect in terms of when you want to engage sponsorships, stakeholders, which is, I guess, the harder part of your job. You've done well because Sing Life recently came on, and I guess that's a tick in the box in terms of KPIs. But what's your strategy then to attract more partners?
Well, we've had a really fortunate history of working with sponsors. I think we've had really supportive partners over the years. in recent times, Meraxas, Deloitte, Singlife, Essex, FPT, just to name a few, Molten as well, which supplies us balls. I think the power of a partnership lies in the relevance that each party can bring to the table. And so it's finding those points of synergy. I mean, that word is overused, but it's really those points of connection that the partners have between themselves, things that they both stand for, that they can help to further and promote through, like I said, the platform that is sport. I think another thing that we want to do is to not think too conventionally as well. We have to adopt the position that we are open for business, that we can find a way to be relevant, to earn our keep, to not take the sponsorship dollars for granted, or the opportunities to even engage in a sponsorship discussion for granted. No one owes us sponsorships. Right? It's for us to present that value, and how I hope to do that is really not through my own smarts or media tactics or marketing tactics, but more of, again, rediscovering what is so special about netball or about the netball community in Singapore. There is always something that speaks to a sponsor on a personal level as well as on a business level. And there are some things which I understand Singlife has resonated with, and that's the reason why they came on board earlier this year as well.
I think I've already used the word genuine when describing your speech earlier. You've done just that in terms of the listeners listening into you and why they should be involved in something like Singapore Netball. And it's not just about getting eyeballs for the brand, it's about pursuing a cause that's worth pursuing, right? Tara, I'd like to bring you in for this final part of the conversation. Beyond everything we've spoke about, you're a lifelong netballer, a lifelong athlete. What's your one wish for Singapore Netball as you stand on the cusp of embarking on this exciting journey?
Yeah, I think Daniel just talked about then, that energy and, enthusiasm, and that's contagious. And I think for me, first and foremost, health and wellbeing really important. And I think for young girls and women to be able to choose netball as a sport is a great opportunity for a vehicle for that. And I think the netball community that I've seen, across the world, back home in Australia for me, here just even in my short time in Singapore, there's some really great role models that we have within our system and some really great people that have contributed to netball for a long time. And I think netball, can be a really good choice. And so hopefully the role I would like to play is, how do we continue to grow that? How do we continue to demonstrate that netball is a good choice for people? And then ultimately, how do we build that success within our pathways and our programs to provide people with experience that not only shapes them as humans, but gives them opportunity. If I look in the pathway element, for athletes coming through the system at 17, 19, 21s, international opportunities to travel and see the world and play netball against your age group, even as a youngster, is, a really exciting opportunity. But I think the skills that netball can teach you back in employment or in your career, with your family, and dealing with life is really vital too. So if I can just play a role in helping shape that, and contribute and ensure that our program is setting the example for that, then I'll be happy.
As far as buzzwords go, you're ticking all of them because the things you talk about in terms of pathway and growth is so important. We've touched on growth so much throughout this conversation. Daniel, to round it off, we want Netball Singapore to grow year on year, strength on strength, right? What are some exciting initiatives listeners can look forward to in 2025 as well as beyond?
So I think one really exciting initiative that we have up and coming and which we will announce in the next couple of months is a program by Netball Singapore to nurture potential athletes between the ages of 12 to 17 who come from at-risk, vulnerable backgrounds. I think there is no national academy in Singapore at the moment that is helping these kids who either do not have an opportunity to try netball or play netball consistently in school, because maybe they come from backgrounds that are under-resourced, or maybe because they just are not in schools that offer netball as a CCA. So providing that opportunity and platform to then talent scout as well, and to develop them for the age group pathways. So that if they so have the aspiration to become an elite athlete in future, they at least have the opportunity to do so. And without giving too much away also, I think we are trying to look at across a range of domains, right? So how can we have connections with domains that are not conventionally or traditionally associated with sport? So we're thinking in terms of, say, SG Sport meets SG Fashion, or SG Sport meets SG Music, right? So just finding those connection points again to grow the interest and the community around netball beyond the existing netball community itself.
I mean, it's absolutely clear that Netball Singapore is in great hands in Daniel and Tara. Both of you have outlined what's in store for Netball Singapore, and I think the future is quite exciting. Daniel, Tara, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.